Hi, today I want to show you how to set dynamic content using Wized for your Webflow-based web application. And the cool thing about that is we can render dynamic content for our web application coming from our database without having to use solutions like CMS. This will make the content that we are delivering 100% almost secure. Because think of it like this: if somebody wants to log into your membership site, you're only going to deliver the content that is rendered on the site after the user is authenticated, which is a big difference than just, gating a page where the content is already on. So we're going to use Wized today to dynamically add content to our fields and to add a lot of extensive and exciting functionalities on our web application. So let's do this and let's check this out right now together. So we're going to start with a video because, I like to start with the most exciting stuff here. And then we're going to go down to audio, rich text, even HTML. You can't see that, but we're going to add an HTML element in here. We're going to render some dynamic HTML in Wized. So there are some cool features, and then just, buttons, dynamic links, and all of those things. So every type of content that you can add in Webflow, I'm going to show you today. We're going to do that together, how to set this using Wized dynamically, which is pretty cool. So, let's get right started. Let's go to our Webflow project, and let's go to our video model. And since it is a video module, I have to go and click on it manually to target it. So I have a custom element here with the tag of video and the controls true and the type of video MP4. And what I want to do is I want Wized to dynamically set that video. So what we're going to do is we're just going to add an empty src attribute here. Since this is a custom element, normally you would not even need an empty source attribute, but I found that it works the best if you use the custom element, if you add an empty source attribute, it will work the best for Wized to set dynamic content in that element. So we have the video element, the custom element from Webflow, which if you don't know where to find that, if you go to advanced, you will find custom element. That is what we're using here. We're going to set this as video controls true in the attribute section. So we're going to add a custom attribute controls true. You would not even need to use true, but if you use the custom element, you need to write any value. As you can see, if I have a value empty, it will not do anything. If I add a minus, it will add it. So you need to type anything in here in the controls in order to make this go in effect. Just to make sure that there are no interferences with the code that Webflow is generating for you, I like to add true. So let's add true, and then we have type video MP4. Please adjust this accordingly to whatever video type you're trying to render here. And then we add the empty source attribute with no value, not needed, because Wized will set that for us dynamically. And then I'm adding an attribute called Wized, that is W-I-Z-E-D. This will be the attribute. Whatever is in the value in this attribute will be the name of this video item inside of Wized. And let's call this video item, just like that. Just keep in mind that you cannot add spaces in attributes. You have to write those as one words or use minuses or underscores for separation if you want to. So now if I'm going to reload the page and I'm going to turn on X-ray mode, we see that this item that we named video item using the Wized attribute right here, the value of that is now the name of this item, we have that pop up in the Wized configurator. So now I can click on this and I will be able to do cool stuff with it. And let's do this together. Let's go to the action panel right here and let's go all the way down to set HTML attribute. And what is an HTML attribute? All the attributes that we have set in Webflow in this element are HTML attributes. Those are data sets that you can add on top of your elements in Webflow to give them certain functionalities that are recognized by the browser. So if you want to render a video inside of a video player, you need to set the video source. And the way you're going to set the video source is using the src, standing for source, attribute. So we need to modify this attribute because we need to add a link in here. So what we're going to do is, let's get a video link. I have them just jotted down in my Xano database here. And, let's add src for source. We're targeting that attribute. And, we always have to write return in Wized. And since we are returning a link, we need to add this in quotes because we want this as pure text. And then we will have a link in here. Now, as you can see, some magic happened. The video link that I added in here all of a sudden rendered the video itself, which I can now play on my site. Isn't that cool? And I have a wonderful, fully working video player with download, cast, picture-in-picture. Check this out. Isn't that cool? And, I can add more attributes to customize the player experience. So, for example, I could go in here and add allow full screen. I think that's the attribute for full screen. Allow full screen, true, beautiful. Let's look at that. Let's see if that works. Let's hope, fingers crossed. And, okay, that is not the right attribute to have this work full screen. But ChatGPT can help you with those things. But, the important thing is that we can set the content dynamically in Wized, and then we can figure out how we have to do those things in Webflow, because I'm certainly better in Wized than I am with my Webflow skills. So please excuse me. I'm sure somebody watching this video has a solution. Please put this down in the comments how we can allow full screen on that Webflow video player. But this is all we need to do, and we have that video that is coming dynamically in here. And that video can come from any data type. Now, I don't have any requests set up in this project, but if you want, let's set up a request real quick together just to return some dummy data, just to experiment with it. So let's do it like this, since, we have the Xano endpoint in here, and, we have those different types for the enum here. Let's just build a little endpoint together, giving us dynamic data. So let's go to Xano API, and let's call this content. And this is not really an essential part of the video. You don't need to use that endpoint, but, let's just do this little thing here. So let's add, let's call this data, just like that. So now I have my endpoint, and let's copy this. Let's go to Wized apps. Let's call this Xano content. And then I'm going to show you, we're going to add the endpoint URL in here. We take the last path, the last part that is not the path, that is the path, and we add it as a request. We cannot have a slash in the requests. We're going to add the app for Xano. In the URL endpoint, we write return quotes. We add that in here, just like that. And this will be a get. So now there's no data to be returned yet, but we're going to change this right now. So I'm going to go to my function stack in Xano, click on the plus, and I'm going to go to query all records so I can have some dynamic data, because I want to show you how to set those things dynamically, because that's way cooler than just adding plain text in here. So let's go to my content table. Here we go, content. And let's just return this, and let's publish this. And Xano is super cool for testing things and playing around. As you can see, I get my data. This is good enough. So now I want, of course, to make sure that this happens on page load. So let's create a new action by clicking on the plus on top of here of load API data. And I'm going to set the type to event-based action. I want to do this when the page starts loading. And then I want to perform the request of data. So now when that page starts loading, as you can see, we're loading the data. And now I don't need to go to the video in here and, set a static link. I can just remove this in the quotes. I'm going to go to my data that came from my data source. I'm going to look for my video in here. And yeah, there is my video. It's the 5th record. Let's add this in here. And there we have my video. So now my video is being set, as you can see, from my r dot, which is the request data. You can use variables. You can use whatever you want for that. This is completely up to you. So now when I reload that page, we see the moment this request is finished, the video is being rendered in here. And, since the width is changing a little bit, you may want to work with minimum width to make this look a little bit nicer. Because when you render dynamic content using JavaScript, sometimes you get some content growth where it does like, I want to dance a little bit. So what we can do is we can set a minimum width of 25 rem, and we can say a maximum width of 25 rem. And this should prevent it from shrinking and expanding when Wized is rendering the dynamic content. And as you can see, that works, but it is still doing that in the height. So what we can do is we can just simply go in here in the size section for more size options, and we're just simply going to set this for widescreen. Because we know the video we're going to render is 16:9, so we're just going to set the ratio to 16:9. Just like that. We can do this in the ratio section that is right under overflow, and it will say more size options. You click on here, this expands. We choose widescreen, make sure it is all published, and now we will not have any content resizing. As you can see, beautiful. There is no resizing. It is always the same size. And, it even gives you like a nice loading screen. And you can play this video, and it's a beautiful video player that is natively available to you if you're using Webflow and Wized, and you can set this fully dynamically and natively. Beautiful. And then you can use, some HTML to limit the options, what can be done with this, maybe add some rounded corners here, all of that stuff. But in a nutshell, this is how you add a dynamic video in Wized. So there is more to go. So let's start with audio right now. And actually, I want to update one thing for my audio player. Let's move the video player down here, and let's go with audio. I used to set the source for the audio player as a separate block, which is not needed. So let me update this for you right now. Let me just remove this. And we're going to do this together. So I have my audio player in here, and I'm going to add a custom element again. That is the one that you can find in the advanced section here, the custom element, truly powerful. And I'm going to add a tag of audio on here for the audio player. We want to add controls true, so we have like the playback controls. And let's add again an attribute of type. And then we're going to add audio MPEG. We would ideally want to choose audio MPEG so that it can also play on, sorry Apple, iOS devices. If you're going to use MP3, it will sometimes not fully work with iOS devices with their playback features. I'm not completely sure why, but that seems to be something that Apple can probably give you a better answer on. And then, again, same principle, we're adding just an empty src for source attribute. And then, here comes the fun thing about Webflow. I need to write something in here. As you can see, I should have mentioned that also. When I don't add any content inside the video player, it will be randomly resized. I don't know why, because, the source is supposed to be ideally in the video player. So what I like to do is I just like to add a minus in here, and that will fix the problem. Same with the audio player. The audio player should work, but since there is no text in here, I'm just adding a minus, and there we have my audio player. That will fix it. So let's just go over it one more again. We have the audio tag on the custom element. You can find this in the settings, and this is the tag. In the attributes, we add a control attribute of true and a controls attribute of true. excuse me. And then we're adding the type of video MPEG to make it supportive also with iOS devices. And we're adding an empty SRC source attribute. So, let's move this up here. Let's take the audio and let's move this up here. And let's publish the site. Make sure you have that minus in here. And now let's go to Wized and let's play some audio. So now, I forgot about that too. We also need to add a Wized attribute on the audio player, otherwise Wized will not recognize this. So always add the Wized attribute, and let's call this audio player. Audio player, just like that. Let's publish this. And now, after I added the attribute finally, we are going to have that recognized by Wized. We see we have our audio player. So now I'm going to click on audio player, and we're going to do the same principle as we did with the video. So let's go to my database, and let's take that audio file I have here. And this can be any link, any CDN link to an audio file. And now let's go on settings, set HTML attribute, and we're targeting the source, SRC again. Let's write return, because we always have to write return in Wized, and let's add, the link in here in quotes. Now, as you can see, I will have the duration of 7 seconds, and I can play this. Let's see what this is saying.
As an AI, I don't have feelings, so I don't have good or bad days, but I'm always ready to assist you. How can I help you today?
So it is playing that audio beautifully.
As an AI, I don't have feelings, so I don't have good or bad days, but I'm always ready to assist you. How can I help you today?
Thank you so much, AI. So it is playing that wonderful audio. And I have, my audio player in here, which, I can go back and
But I'm always
I can make this louder, and it's really cool.
ready to assist you.
So now we got that working, and we're rendering this static. So we want to do the same thing we did for the video, and we want to render this based on the data. So we're going to go to the data that happened when we did our API request, and let's look for the audio. So let's look at audio. We got the audio here. So now this will render the audio. So now, as you can see,
As an AI,
beautiful, it's playing. So now, as you can see, the moment the data is being loaded in Wized, which is incredibly fast, this audio player is moving from 0 seconds to 7 seconds because that's the duration of the audio. So the data in this audio player is coming directly from the database request that Wized is doing for us. Isn't that amazing? So now we have video.
As an AI, I don't have feelings.
And we have audio. Let's go with even more exciting and crazy stuff. So let's, move this down. Let's also move the video down ideally. And, we got them down here. Let's go with the also exciting stuff. We can also add code in Wized. So I just have, like a custom code element in here. And I just have, like some empty code in here, which, you don't even need to set that. But you can add a custom code element, and then you can use this in Wized to dynamically render code inside of here, which is a pretty cool thing to do if you're working with a lot of different kinds of content. And I'm going to show you why it is so cool. Because this element here potentially can have any form you want it to be. This can be your audio player. This can be your color picker. If you ever need to render those things dynamically in a list, this technique that I'm going to show you here will be saving your life. It is truly a lifesaver. So let's take this code element here and let's add a Wized attribute on it. We only need to add a Wized element, a Wized attribute. So let's call this HTML embed. And let's publish this, and we are able to render any JavaScript, any HTML in here and have it fully represented in Wized. So right now we see we have this element, and it will not have any width applied to it because it is an HTML embed. So now I can click on here, and we're not going to set the HTML attribute. And this is exciting. So let me just get prepared here because, you'll be stunned at what we're doing here. I have some HTML code that ChatGPT carefully wrote for me with JavaScript in it. And we want to render this on the DOM using Wized. I'm not going to use setHTML attribute. I'm going to use setText. And you may ask yourself, like, what's going on here? And this will be a nightmare doing this statically. So let's do this dynamically immediately. So we already have an HTML string. I have to embed in here. So I will get this code. Now, if we have setText, we see, okay, you know, what are you even showing us here? We're just setting text for, in a code embed, in an HTML embed, we're just setting some random text that is, you know, some gibberish. No, we're doing more. Because the moment I change this from plain HTML to, not to Markdown. Markdown works too, but we should change this to HTML. I'm going to have this code represented as a color selector. This is exciting stuff. Look at that. So Wized has the possibility to set inner HTML using the setTextHTML action to set inner HTML for the HTML element. This will put your Lottie animations being dynamically set to a whole nother level. This is pretty useful if you're going to work with SDKs. This is pretty useful if you're going to work with, you know, dynamic code generation, if you're going to build an AI that will not just give you the code, but actually show you how that code is working, to have like an easier debugging principle process. This is really cool because I just have the HTML element. I'm going to misuse the setText action, which it was never built for, but it works. So I can set text, and if I were to choose this as plain text, it will not work because this action is taking the HTML element and setting text in the HTML element. But the moment the text that is being set is in HTML format in the HTML element, the HTML magic of Webflow kicks in and renders the content that is being set in it as HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and makes it fully functional. Isn't that exciting? I think that is pretty exciting. So that was it for the HTML element. I think the star of the show today. But let's add this down here because we got way more exciting stuff to go. We have made way more exciting stuff ahead of us. Now let's go with, you know, the essentials. Let's go with images. Let's make this a little bit smaller. And setting an image is super easy in Wized. We're going to go to custom attributes, and I'm going to add again the name of Wized, and let's call this image set, for example. Beautiful. So now I'm going to set the image. And one thing I want to mention is when we use the native image Webflow image component, we don't need to add the source attribute, because if we use any of those pre-made Webflow components here in the media section, they already use the source attribute and do those HTML stuff for us. We only need to manually set the source attribute as an empty value for better working with it if we use the custom element. But there's no need to use the image as a custom element. So just keep that in mind. So now we have the image in here, and it is not being set. And in this example here, let's just do this, but we're probably going to get a big image. Let's just go to the image, and let's go again to set HTML attribute. We're going to go to source src, return quotes, and let's go to our database, and let's take that image. Beautiful. And we're going to look at the most beautiful image in this whole entire world. Let's set this. We're going to look at the Wized image with the brain, the logic, and the actions around it. As you can see, this is how easy Wized can set that image for you. Now, let's go to the image, and let's get this from our dynamic data. So let's remove the quotes. Let's go to our data, and let's look for the image that is right here. And now, when this request finishes, we're going to have that image set. But we get some content resizing, which is not that nice. So what we're going to do here is, first, we know that image should be 1-to-1, so 1 by 1. So we're going to go to the size section first, and let's add, a maximum width of, let's do 25 rem, and a minimum width of 25 rem. So we have that image always resized, maybe 20, that looks a little bit better. Boom. And then, just to make sure, I'm going to expand this more size options and set the ratio to square 1 by 1. And yeah, I think cover will be a good option so that we don't have any stretched images. Beautiful. So now if I reload this, there will be no resizing. We will get for a split second like this empty image, which is not that nice, ideally. So let's actually, fine-tune this even more. What we can do is, and this is already probably going into the topic of a different video, but since if we use the Wized, the native Webflow components, we're going to get sometimes some content flashing or sometimes something that we don't want to really show. So I'm going to show you like a simple technique how we can have those things fade in nicely, especially if we're going to use pre-made Webflow components that may not be as responsive as when we use, HTML components. So let's add a class of hidden, just like that. And the hidden class, we're just going to remove the opacity to 0. Beautiful. And then maybe let's add, or actually, yeah, I think opacity 0 is good. And let's do this. And then we're going to add a nice transition in Webflow for all properties, and let's do it very gradual. Let's do like 500 milliseconds. So now when this is hidden, and we're going to remove the hidden class, we have the image fade in. So initially now we want to set the hidden class on this. Now, since this is opacity 0, we're not going to see, the image now. But what we want to do is we want to go back to the image, and we want to go on add, and we want to add another action on here. We want to go to set class, hidden, and let's add a little function in here. We're going to write return, and we want to look for the status does not equal 200. Doesn't equal 200. That is false. So now, if the request is not 200, meaning it's not successful, this class of hidden will be added onto it. And if it was successful, the class is being removed. And when the class is being removed, since we have the transition added on Webflow here, when that class is being removed, to have that with the all properties 500 milliseconds transition, the moment this image is rendered, it is fading in, and we don't have any content flashing or any content resizing or glitchiness in setting the content for this, which is a super powerful thing and can be used for everything. So that is really cool. That is how you're going to do that. So let's take this image and let's add it all the way down here. Beautiful. So now let's go with the rich text. The rich text is not really needed. You can do this also in the HTML, because if you set that text as HTML, that will work too. But I still want to show you that this works with the rich text field. So let's add the rich text field in here, and let's change the font a little bit, because the cool thing is if we go with a super fancy font in here, let's do Times New Roman, it will be also applied to any content that we render in it. And we also probably want to do the hidden principle here as well. So let's go with this text in here, and let's add an attribute in here of Wized again, and we're going to say rich text, just like that. So now we're going to now we will be able to set the rich text in here. So let's go on X-ray, let's click on rich text, and we're going to go to set text, and we're setting this probably as HTML. So let's return, just like that. And no, now for ease of use, I'm not going to add a big HTML string. I'm just going to go directly to the data, and I am going to, where do we have the rich text? Here we go, rich text. So now, as we can see, we will have this rendered in here. Maybe not perfectly. Maybe I still have to work on some things, or ChatGPT didn't give me the right rich text, but it is following the style guidelines. I think we may even get a better result if we use Markdown. Maybe I was completely wrong with that. Yeah, no, because we render this as HTML, so it makes sense to set this as HTML. So here we go. That is the HTML text. Now, actually, let's go to ChatGPT, because that should ideally be Markdown. So let's say, write a blog about AI in Markdown, because ideally you want to use Markdown for better results. So it's going to write that now in Markdown. This is like what you would normally use. So, let's update this in the database to give you a better example. Beautiful. So now here we have that. And, let's go to the rich text. Let's add the Markdown in here for our blog post. Oh. Interesting. Okay, now it worked. Beautiful. And now let's reload. And as you can see, it's doing some strange stuff here. Let's see. Why am I returning the API? That's interesting. So I have that in here. Oh, it got the wrong thing. It rearranged it. So because I updated that, it rearranged the structure of it. That is interesting. So let's add that in here. So now I have this as HTML. I need to change this to Markdown. And now I have my formatted blog post in here, right? So let's just summarize this, because this is a little bit tricky. I need to make sure that the text is also written in Markdown. So it needs to follow the principle of the, like the hash and all of that to format it properly. And then I'm just going to render this using setText Markdown feature from my dynamic content in Wized. And then the only thing I need to do is, just render this then dynamically. And all the styling that I apply on this rich text block in Webflow will be automatically applied to the dynamic text that I'm going to render using Wized. So that is super cool, especially if you're following some branding guidelines here. So let's paste this down here, and let's just go with, a simple heading. And, a simple heading actually is super powerful in Wized, because we can do pretty cool stuff with it. So let's add the Wized attribute here, and let's call this simple heading, just like that. Let's publish this, and let's set the heading. Beautiful. So now, in here, we have our heading, and, one thing broke, because, we rearranged basically the whole list. The audio is no longer 7. The audio is now, I think, 6. Let's look at that. No, 6. Yeah, 6 is the audio. So let's take this. So the audio still works. Beautiful. Okay. So we're back with it. So perfect. So let's go to the heading element. Let's go on X-ray mode. Let's click on here. And now we're going to go to the actions. We're clicking on settings, set text. Let's go with plain text first. Let's do return. And let's do hello, just like that. And now I have rendered hello in here. Now, of course, we want to have that come dynamically. So let's just have this. Let's just do one more example. I can also use, Markdown. I can do hello, just like that. And now if it's just plain text, it will just say hash hello. But now if I change this to Markdown, it will format it accordingly to whatever hash means in Markdown. And in HTML, I can also render HTML in the text element, which is not really recommended. But I could do something like, let's ask ChatGPT. give me HTML for a heading changing its color every 5 seconds. Let's see. So because we can also set cool stuff in it. So we can use it a little bit like the HTML element where we can set HTML in it. I think set HTML is really a not too much used feature in Wized, but it is actually, I think, the most powerful one that you can do in the text. And it was never supposed to be that way. So actually, let's ask ChatGPT now, can you give me this as an HTML string, please? Because, you know, I don't want to format that. So it will give me now a string, an HTML string. Okay, perfect. So then I can just easily paste it in the code editor, because otherwise the code editor will just, you know, recognize this as code, which I don't want it to do. So I can add this in here. And as you can see now, we have the colorful heading. Let's just reload it and see if it works. It may be just bad ChatGPT code. It's not changing its color. But you get the idea. This is probably just not that great of a code that I just got from them here. But you know, you get the idea. I can render any type of HTML in here. For example, I could go with a video component. I could write return quotes, and I don't know the syntax for a video component. So let's say, give me an HTML video component, please. And it will give me the HTML video component, just like that. And okay, and let's say, give me this as an HTML string. And we can do this all in the heading. So like this works. And by the way, I cannot see what I'm typing because, you know, the recording bar is over my text. Sorry for all the typos. But yeah, I can just do this like this. And I could, you know, set this in here. And I have a video component in a text heading that was set. Like, you can do cool stuff with Wized with the HTML feature that is really overlooked. But it's supposed to be for text. So let's go with text. We see we have that now set to text. And, you know, let's make this fully dynamic by just going to our dynamic content that says hello. And now every time the page is being loaded, we will have content flashing for heading, and it will say hello, and we have some resizing. So the way we're going to fix that is very simple. First of all, we want to add, and I like to do that, let's, you know, add a class for this heading. Let's call this heading, and let's add a combo class of hidden. And now what we want to do is we want to add, you know, when it is hidden, we want to again have this fade out, just like that. And then on the original one, we're going to add a transition for all properties of 500 milliseconds in the transition section in the Webflow style panel. So now when I have this hidden and remove it, it will fade in. And let's add the hidden class initially. And let's go and publish. That should make it way nicer. And if we know that it's already only on one line, we can even, you know, just set the height of it to, let's say, 3 rem, and make sure flex is centered, and then it will have a fixed height, and we will not have any content resizing in addition to the content flashing to make this whole experience as smooth as butter. So let's wait till this is published, and then let's go back to Wized. So now we don't see it, and we're going to the simple heading, and I'm just going to add one more thing in here. I'm going to add @. I'm going to go to set class, and I target the hidden class. Return, same function as we did before, because the moment the request data is available, immediately in 0 time delay, this heading is being set. So our time to add the class is once this request that is where the image is where the heading is dependent on is successful, we want to have this go. So we're going to look for the status doesn't equal 200 because we need to negate that. We cannot say it should equal 200 because then it would be hidden if it came back successful. But we want to have it hidden before it comes back successful to prevent the content flashing. So we have to set it like this, and now when we reload, we see it will fade in the moment the data is available to us. And it will look beautiful, and it will look smooth, and it will look very professional. So this is how we're going to work with simple headings. And let's now go with links. This is also very exciting. So now sometimes you want to set not just the text of a button, but also the destination of a button, where this button will go using Wized dynamically. So we're going to go to the settings, the custom attributes, and I'm going to go type in Wized, and let's say dynamic link or dynamic link button. Beautiful. So dynamic link button. Let's publish this, and we'll be able to not just, oh, something went wrong publishing. We'll be able not just to set the destination, but also the text, and we can even set some styling, not tiling. We're not going to tile something. We're going to add some styling on that button as well, which we can do, which is pretty cool. So let's click on that button, and let's go on that button. And let's go on set text first, and let's just return, hey, just like that. Now this button is saying, hey. So that is pretty cool. And now we can set an attribute, and we can do on click, and I can write window dot location dot href equals, and let's use the Wized domain. And we're already starting this, so let's stop before I get a million API calls real quick. So let's add this in here. And now, as you can see, we're going to be redirected to Wized the moment the user clicks on it. And let's just clean this to make sure that everything works. Because sometimes working with redirects can be a pain. And maybe that is not the best way to do that because of Wized reactivity. But essentially, let's go on the published side and let's see how it behaves over there. Oh, it's immediately redirecting even though I'm not clicking it. I assume because Wized is setting the HTML attribute of it, maybe what could happen here with the unclick key is because it waits until there is a click on, setting the text may be counted as a click for the HTML and may interfere with that. So that is not an issue at all. We can fix that as well. We're just going to use the native Wized click event. So we're going to add an action in here, and we're going to go to on event, and we're typing in click. That will do the same thing, just way better. And we're going to then go to navigate to. That is even more customizable for us. We're going to write return. We're going to add dynamically our URL where we want to navigate to, just like that. And then we're going to go to open a new tab. Beautiful. So now when I click on here, I should be opening the Wized website in a new tab. Beautiful. And now we want to have this work dynamically. So what we can do is we're just going to go to the navigate to, and we want to navigate to this URL dynamically. So let's look for the link in here. Where do we have the link? And here we go. This is the website link. This will be wized.com. So now this link is being set dynamically. And then, let's just have this equal the link. So let's go to the link of, or actually let's set this as the text. So let's set this as the word link where we have the type. So it's just not the same. So now we can see it will set this as link. And when I click on it, I will open the Wized website. Now we can do even cool stuff and, set the color of it. So I can go on settings, set style, and let's go on color. I can go on return, and let's ask Google for hex code colors. And yeah, let's take this one. This looks good. And I can also dynamically or statically set the color of this element. Or it should work. It's not. Set style color. Oh, maybe it needs to be background color. So, background. I just like setting styles better than that, but let's go to background color. That should be it. It's not. Okay, so, oh, there is no hash in it. That's it. This should be, yeah, it fixed it. So we can even change the color and do some cool stuff with it, even though I don't think that's necessary. But we can do if we want to. So, I can then just do dot content, and I'll have the link. I can set the link dynamically in here. And this is pretty cool because I cannot just set the destination when I click on this link where it is going dynamically. I can also set the text and some of the style in it, which is pretty cool too. Now, we are still facing the issue where we have this content flashing, right? We have this going down and up. So what we want to do again is, and I like this principle, for this one we may even use a different principle. What we can do is we can set the height to be fixed to 3 rem, or let's do 2.5. That looks better. Let's make sure this is centered, flexbox center. And then, while we're already on it, let's add some rounded corners. They always look very pleasant. And let's just remove this generic blue with a nicer blue, just like that. What we can do is, if we know that all links have the same width about, we could add some CSS transitioning to have those links appear. And I never did this before, so this is an experiment. Let's add the hidden class here. And for the hidden class, what I would do is I would set the text color as the same as the background color. So it will look cool. And then let's maybe change the width to 1 rem, or maybe let's do 3 rem, 3.5. And then the idea is that when Wized interacts with it, we just have it fade then to the auto width. So let's see if this works. Let's add a transition of all properties, 500. And now when I hide this, as you can see, when it is hidden, I have that in here. And it is then, when it is growing, it is, just resizing based on the text I set. And then when I go back, when that hidden class is already on here, we want to remove the transition so that we only have the transition when we remove the class. I think that looks good. Let's give this a shot and let's see if this makes the whole experience nicer. Now, ideally, we would have, that fade in 2, but, let's get this solved first. So now we have that in here, and we may want to add some overflow hidden. When it is hidden, we want to add some overflow hidden to prevent those things from happening. Okay, that looks good. Let's go on set class, and let's go to this link, and let's go on the actions, and let's go on set class, and let's add hidden. And again, let's do the same thing where we write return, and we're going to look for if this request was not successful yet, because that's when we want to have the hidden class on it to make it, a little bit condensed. So now what should happen? We see that this link is slightly fading in. And, I don't really like that it's not that nice of an animation when it transitions. So let's see how we can fix that. the challenge here is that we have the width set to auto. What I can do is I can have the minimum width of 3 rem, or let's do 5, and then when I change this to the combo class of hidden, I have the width set. So the thing here is where it would then be at 7, for example, it will then grow. So what we can do is when this is hidden and the minimum width would be like 3.5, we would then have this grow in size, you know, as this will interact with it. And we can then also set a maximum width of like 15 rem, for example. And then when I add my hidden class on here and remove it, it should grow and have this nice transition, which in theory works. So we have part of that transition, but it will still be very glitchy because we don't set any specific width. So what we can do is, if we're not too crazy, we can have the width set to 2 rem, and we can have the, let's do this, 2 rem, the minimum width of 7 rem, and when I add the hidden class, that width will be still 2 rem, and when I remove this hidden class, then we can go as far as we want, and it should have a fade-in animation where it grows. If not, we're just going to set opacity. That's the easiest fix. But, you know, we want to see. Okay. It's not working as it's supposed to be. So let's just clear the styles here. Let's just have the opacity interact with that. So we still want to have that height, and the hidden class now would just simply be opacity hidden, opacity 0, and then when we remove that hidden class, we have that button fade in. I think, you know, that is good enough. That looks good too. So let's look at that, how this will look. So now when I reload, we see that this button will be fading in. And I think this maybe even looks nicer than, you know, having that button grow. I think it's pretty nice. It is a great transition, and it looks very professional. And when I click on it, I dynamically go to the website that was been set in here, which is pretty cool. So that was it for the button. Now let's go with an iframe. Now, the cool thing about iframes is they're very flexible. We can basically embed everything we want in them, from websites to YouTube videos. And let's use a YouTube video as an example. Again, for the iframe, we're going to use the Webflow custom element. And we're going to use the tag of iframe, and we're going to add an empty source attribute, src, frame border 0, very important, otherwise you get ugly frame borders. And then we're going to add allow, and then we add some, you know, customizations that I'm going to put you in the clonable in the video description. But they are only optional. You don't need them. And then we add allow full screen if in case you're going to embed a YouTube video. And then we're just going to add a minus here, so you know it will work then, because we're going to use the Webflow custom component. And the last step is adding the Wized attribute. Let's call this iframe, just like that. Let's publish this. And now let's go to Wized and let's customize the iframe. Just like that, we have the iframe in here. And let's go in the action for the iframe. We're going to go to set HTML attribute, source, src, return, and let's add a YouTube video. Let's take, where do I have video? Oh no, that's the iframe. Here we have the iframe with the YouTube video. This is how we're going to embed the YouTube player, just like that. And now, just like that, we should be able to reload that. And of course, YouTube is not allowing us to iframe this. Okay, that is YouTube. So then let's do a different kind of iframe. Let's then iframe a website that I did in Wized. So let's go to wized.com. Let's log in, just like that. And let's take this mobile one. And let's iframe this. Let's copy this. Also update this on the database for the iframe. And, let's add this in here. Now you can see, after I reload this, oh, now I know. It would be working with the YouTube video. The issue is that Wized is giving us an iframe. And, 2 iframes inside of each other are too much. So if I were to add in the iframe the source for the YouTube video, it will still work, just not in an iframe. So if I were to open this in a new tab, we will see, okay, that YouTube thing is still not working. So, but it should be working with my side. So, this is part of that issue where if I were to try to iframe my own side here, or let's take another side to make it more complex. Let's take this side here, and I would be trying to iframe this just like that. In here, it will say, I cannot iframe you because it's iframe in an iframe. But if I open that on my page, it will work, as you can see, just like that. So we have that iframe set in here because Wized is using an iframe to show your Webflow website in its configurator. And it is sometimes problematic iframing an iframe. So because iframes have some restrictions in what they are able to do. So here you go. Now, one thing how I could potentially think that you could go around those iframe restrictions, only hypothetically, and I don't know if this will work, is using an embed attribute instead of an iframe, removing any text you have in it, then maybe removing some of those features here. Let's see if that will work. And that potentially could work. Let's see. When I reload, I will still get that cross-origin issue because they don't let me iframe that even using an embed. So just ignore this. That was not the solution. But now we have this iframe in here. Beautiful. And yeah, then we just are able to add iframes. We're just not able to view those iframes in the Wized editor. We need to go outside of the Wized editor to make sure that all works. But then we can iframe like a Vimeo video and so on and so forth. This is really cool what we can do with it. So yeah, this is how we're going to set all kinds of exciting stuff, all kinds of exciting content in Wized and Webflow. And yeah, because I updated some things in the database in Xano, some things broke. So for the HTML embed, I need to go to the HTML again and make sure that links. So this is why you should normally render those things as a list. So let's look at the embed here. That should fix it. For the image set, let's update it with the image, right? So this is why you want to always make sure that you're not sorting based on timestamp, because it can sometimes break some things if they are not being rendered as dynamic list itself. So let's go with the image in here. Beautiful. So now that is all back and working. Now for this one here, that doesn't look simple heading. Doesn't look that simple. So let's see. For the simple heading, I need to update this to hello, just like that. And then for the button, I want to update this to the link. Let's go in here and make sure that is linked to the link, just like that. Let's reload this. Oh, I think I still haven't linked it properly. I also need to link the text. So we need to take the third one here. Beautiful. And that should solve it. Let's see. Oh no, that is returning something different. So let's double check on that link. Here we go. Where do we have link? Here's the link. That should be it. And then let's go to the link here. And let's link it to the link. That should be it. And yeah, that looks like it solved it. So now we have that. So this is how you're going to set dynamic content in Wized from, and we need to fix the video too. That was the last thing that needed to be fixed. So we cannot add the YouTube video in the video icon, in the video element. So I'm going to add my normal video. Boom. So this is how you're going to set all kinds of different content from HTML embeds that are dynamically rendered in Wized to video players.
As an AI, I don't have feelings, so I don't have good or bad days, but I'm always ready to assist you. How can I help you today?
To audio players, to images that nicely fade in when the content is loaded, dynamically formatted blog posts, normal headings, and even buttons that go to different links and are fully set dynamically. So this is how you're going to build all of those cool things, how you're going to add, you know, dynamic elements and make them work with dynamic data coming from your backend, thanks to the power of Wized. You know, sometimes, as you saw in this video, you have to experiment a little bit. Sometimes you want to do something and it doesn't work on the first try. The most important thing is that you don't give up and that you always have a sense of curiosity and try again until you figure out how to make it work. And then once you made it work, you own that skill and you don't need to buy a template. You don't need to pay somebody to do that for you. It just takes a little bit of time, understand the principles, and you have the greatest gift in life that you can ever have is you're able to turn your ideas into reality yourself without needing help from somebody else to do that for you, which I think is the most valuable skill that you can have in today's world. And thanks to Wized and Webflow and tools like MemberStack, this possibility is given to us. So thank you so much for watching. There are more beginner videos coming in the next days towards you, so please look for them. And if you have any questions, if anything was unclear, if you want any more explanation about any specific thing, please let me know in the comments. I'm always here to help you. And thank you so much for being part of the wonderful Wized community. And if you have any other topics you would like to have videos, beginner videos, or more complex videos about, please let me know in the comments. I'm always here to read your comments, listen to your feedback, and we will be able to help you with that all the time. So thank you so much for all your support. Thank you so much for watching. This really, really, really means a lot to me. And yeah, thank you so much for everything, and see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.